You've just cleared a massive shipment of industrial machinery for home consumption. The customs duty is paid, the paperwork is filed, but when the container doors swing open, the asset inside is rusted, broken, or entirely out of specification. The importer is now caught in a financial trap. The machinery is useless for production, yet the hefty import duty has already been handed over to the government. It sits on the ledger as a sunk cost on a dead asset. Historically, the only way to recover that paid duty was to pack the defective goods back up and physically ship them to the original foreign supplier. This chart shows the fatal flaw in that requirement. When you weigh the potential duty refund against the sheer cost of international return freight, the shipping expenses routinely eclipse the recoverable tax. Attempting to get your money back costs more than the refund itself. Section 26A of the Customs Act, 1962, provides a specific statutory mechanism designed to bypass this exact dead end. The legislation does something highly specific. It decouples the right to a duty refund from the requirement of physical reexportation. But the government does not hand back collected taxes easily. Instead of navigating global shipping logistics, securing this money requires an importer to navigate a strict, multi-node statutory matrix. We are going to build out this legal decision tree step by step. We will map the absolute eligibility conditions, the 3 permitted methods for disposing of the goods, and the rigidly bifurcated timelines that govern the entire process. Once you understand how these specific provisions interlock, a scenario that normally results in a massive logistical loss becomes a controlled, purely domestic administrative recovery. The baseline parameter for any claim under Section 26A requires that the goods must have already been cleared for home consumption and subsequently found to be defective or not in conformity with the agreed specifications. The statute applies 2 absolute exclusions. First, claims are forbidden on perishable goods or goods exceeding their shelf life. Second, goods involved in any offense under the Customs Act or other laws are instantly disqualified. Surviving those exclusions, they hit active conditions, starting with the identity test. The Customs Commissioner must be thoroughly satisfied the broken items are the exact same goods that cleared customs. This check locks to the non-usage rule. The importer cannot have worked on, repaired, or used the goods after importation. The law allows one exception. Usage is permitted only if absolutely indispensable to discovering the defect. For instance, an importer wiring and powering on a CNC machine solely to realize the motor is non-functional has engaged in indispensable use. Attempting to repair that motor voids the claim. Finally, the matrix applies a strict prohibition on double dipping. The importer cannot claim a duty drawback under any other provision of the Act while pursuing relief under Section 26A. By forcing the taxpayer through these initial gates, the authorities guarantee the exact untampered asset is what the refund claim is filed against. This brings us to the most critical junction of the matrix: how the taxpayer legally disposes of the goods to trigger the refund without actually returning them to the seller. The law offers 3 parallel pathways. Path A is the traditional route, exporting the goods out of India. Path B keeps the goods local, completely relinquishing title and abandoning them to customs. Path C is the most aggressive option, physically destroying the goods or rendering them commercially valueless. Path C carries a strict procedural requirement. This destruction cannot happen in an isolated warehouse on the importer's own schedule. It must occur in the physical presence of the proper officer. The government needs absolute certainty that the asset cannot re-enter the domestic market. Rendering it permanently commercially valueless ensures this. The duty is refunded on a product that effectively ceases to exist. Whichever of the 3 disposition paths the importer chooses, the physical action is bound by a severe countdown timer. The physical export, relinquishment, or destruction must be executed within 30 days. And that clock starts ticking from the exact date the proper officer originally made the order for clearance for home consumption. There is only one administrative lifeline. If the importer can show sufficient cause, the Principal Commissioner of Customs can extend this period up to a maximum of 3 months. Granting businesses the legal right to abandon or destroy the goods locally under Parts B and C is the specific mechanic that eliminates the crippling economic barrier of return shipping. Once the physical asset is legally disposed of, the focus shifts entirely to the administrative filing of the refund claim. The overarching rule for the paperwork is straightforward. The formal application for the import duty refund must be filed before the expiry of 6 months. However, this 6-month clock does not start at the time of import. It triggers from a variable, statutorily defined metric known as the relevant date. The relevant date changes based on how you disposed of the goods. If the importer chose Path A and exported the asset, the relevant date is the exact date the proper officer makes an order permitting clearance and loading for exportation. If the importer chose Path B, the relevant date is simply the exact date they relinquish their title to customs. And if the importer chose Path C, the 6-month clock starts on the exact date the goods were destroyed or rendered commercially valueless. Taxpayers frequently confuse these two separate statutory clocks. You have a highly urgent 30-day window to deal with the physical asset, followed by a separate 6-month window to calculate your relevant date and file the paperwork. This is the complete statutory architecture. It maps the exact route an importer must take, from the moment a defective product clears customs to the successful filing of a refund application. By explicitly mapping out local destruction and relinquishment, the law provides a domestic path of least resistance, bypassing the heavy cost of export logistics. But the procedural traps are absolute. Failing the identity test, utilizing goods beyond defect discovery, or missing the 30-day window instantly voids the claim. By mastering the Section 26A matrix, tax professionals can rescue capital trapped in defective imports, turning a logistical nightmare into a precise domestic tax recovery.